makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have an exciting conversation with Shelley Smith. Shelley is a best-selling author, consultant, founder, and CEO of a consultant firm named Premier Rapport. Well, good morning or good afternoon, Shelley, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. I'm so excited and I cannot wait to learn more about your business and also about you. How did you get started with everything? So can you tell us more about your backstory? How did you get to consulting and what's make it all begin? What's the journey behind it?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on today. I'm very excited and obviously honored. Let's see. Well, I'll try to keep this short and sweet, but I grew up in an entrepreneurial home that I didn't even know that word at the time. And I worked at the ripe old age of 11 in my parents' business, initially on the weekends and evenings. They had a restaurant and a flea market, if you will, on the weekends. And so I worked there and I saw the behind the scenes of a family-owned business. And then fast forward, and I started working with Marriott International. And I worked with them for 14 years on a multitude of levels. I came in as an entry-level desk clerk and then went through all the management pieces and into the select service brands and exited at 14 years mark as an area general manager. And I actually didn't want to move to DC at the time, and I filtered myself out to the local franchise hotel group that I had dotted line responsibility for and said, you need to hire me, and this is what I want my title to be, and and this is what I'll do for you, because I wanted to stay local. And so I got 3 offers, and I went with one of the franchise partners, and when they had 3 hotels. They were just getting into the Marriott portfolio, and when I left, they had 35 hotels. I was with them for 8 years. And I was their COO, so that was great fun. I left them. I went to another hotel group for a couple of years, and I realized I was completely burnt out on the hotel industry. It was not about the brick and mortar. It was always about the people. I had a wonderful conversation with a franchise broker. She interviewed me. She came back the next day and gave me 3 pitches. All 3 pitches was around coaching, and this was 15 years ago. And I said, people get paid for that? You know, this is back when a coach was just a thing. And if you had a coach, something's wrong with you. Well, now, if you don't have a coach, what's wrong with you, right? And so I bought a franchise and I sold that franchise a year later. It was a concept of executive coaching and peer board review. I sold that, took a little bit of bumps and bruises and learned my lesson and have what I have today. And it's a business consulting firm under the umbrella of workplace culture. Firm believer that culture matters, people matters, we're human first, and we're employees second. And so I do a plethora of creation for companies around their mission, their vision, their values, their culture statements, their internal universities, leadership development, how do they mentor, how do they succession plan, creating culture playbooks through a proprietary method that I've created around, it's called the ACC program, analyzing it through an inquiry in order to curate and create the culture, not just by design, but actually living the culture. So inside of that, of course, is the employee engagement and the retention, and obviously creating the profitability for the business to keep it sustainable and growing. And so that's where I am 15 years later. I use all kinds of amazing tools like predictive index. I actually certify individuals as culture creators as well. So I've created the own online membership, the certification piece, and then of course my one-to-one touch. So I'm a huge believer in staying, making myself applicable and staying in the real footing. So I outsource and bring in additional team members when needed, but it really is me, boots on the ground, because I want to remain relevant. And, you know, I laugh and say what makes me different isn't all the initials behind me, but it's my years of experience now, 40 plus years of experience in this space, and getting in the trenches, remaining hands-on, talking to all levels of an organization in order to make it sticky, make it real, make it living. And now everybody's talking about culture. And I've been in this space for 4 decades, and I'm not just passionate about it. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. There isn't any conversation that I have personally and professionally that I'm not thinking through the culture, the culture piece. People talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It makes me crazy when they roll it all together because it's all, it's separate pieces. And now you hear, ESG, and, people are jumping on board with now ESG, and I just laugh and I say, you're overcomplicating it and you're throwing out dichotomy that doesn't make sense to anybody. And what are you actually trying to do, to do with it? And it all is in the vein of workplace culture. So there it is.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Not only that, with your determination, I don't think anyone, it's something that's like, it's different, because you have that determination in you. It's like you going into those places and say, hey, hire me, this is the title I want, this is how I can help you. I never heard of that before. That's like, you know what you want.
Yeah, we can't do one and done. The reason why there's so much confusion, or the biggest thing I get asked is, how do I quantify it? How do I measure the culture? Culture is nice to have. No, culture's happening whether you recognize it or not, and whether you're intentional or not. I mean, there is a bond and a relationship, even between you and I, just meeting online right now. We begin to have a rapport. The rapport ends up turning into, how do we work together now through this podcast, and then, beyond that. And so there's always that dichotomy, and we're either intentional about it and authentic about it, or we're not. And it is a workplace culture piece, and we overcomplicate it, and we think it's this intangible. Well, it's tangible in a business, through your bottom line profits and how you grow your business and how you retain your talent, which leads to the profit. So when people say it's not measurable, that also makes me crazy. It's because they've overcomplicated it. And so to your point, I'm about simplicity. Let's look and see what we have. Let's open up the package. Let's open it up. We see what's in there. We see. Okay, we want to create a new package. Okay, so let's talk about what that might look like, what that might feel like. Look, feel, sound, actionable. And then, okay, let's be able to rinse, repeat, and duplicate it. Just keep it simple.
Keep it easy for the people, so don't make anything complicated. I love it. Is there some sort of meaning why you choose that name for the company?
Yes, there is. Actually, I've got dual citizenship from France and from America. And when I was, but don't ask me, parlez-vous français? No. I don't. No. So because of that, I was trying to come up with something that was different. Actually, the first name of my business was Pink Sky. My daughter was helping me I've got 3 kids, and so she was young at the time, and I said, trying to come up with names, and she's super creative, and we were brainstorming, and she's like, Pink Sky, and I said, why Pink Sky? And she said, well, besides pink being a beautiful color, and making a lot of people happy, she said, Pink Sky at night is supposed to bring you good luck. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. So I went with Pink Sky without Googling. When you type in Pink Sky, y'all don't go do it, but some not so great things come up. And so when I sold my franchise, I said, let me rename my company. And so I went in and I started my very first book. I've written 7 books right now and all kinds of ebooks, but my very first book was called The Connection. I'm all about fundamentally making real connections that are around us every single day, multiple times a day. So I said, I started just typing in top-notch connections, first connections, real connections, and the word rapport came up, and Premier came up, and I did it with the French spelling, and so that's why my Premier doesn't have the E on it, and why I have Rapport. So Premier Rapport, it's about premium, real, authentic connection. So it's about the human behavioral and our need as pack animals in order to bond and create. And so I'm all about, I'm deemed as a wolf. I can run alone and independently, but I also need my pack, and I can come together and collaborate. So not very many people ask me the meaning, but that's the meaning behind it. Now you know. And if you're listening, now you know.
No, I was kind of curious because it's different, That's not the type of name you just find anywhere, Premier Rapport. I'm like, how did she come up with that? That's a hard one.
Now you know. There was a meaning. There was a meaning, yeah.
That is super cool. So your services are for, is it mostly businesses or corporates, or we're talking about individual as well?
It really fits the scope, to your point, because I also will do executive coaching for startups. So when they're in that initial phase, when maybe it's one person and they grow, but I also have clients that are the thousands. So literally the thousands of employees all over the world. So when there's at least two people, there's always something. And in the startup phase, there's the one person that I start with, on the strategy side and the mission side. So not a particular niche as well, because culture works in all environments. So, yeah.
So what are the services that you provide?
So executive coaching, I have specific tools, membership, certifications, creating universities, doing an entire culture inquiry, creating culture playbooks. The leadership development is around, Management 101. So a rinse and repeat, creating a university for a particular company, or it can be, a series. I'm not a believer in one and done. So when somebody says, hey, can you come in and do a one-time communication training? I'm like, yeah, that won't stick. I'm not a one and done person. So I'm about, creating series. And then typically, after I do the series, I'll do some executive coaching inside of that, help stand up mentorship programs and a variety of things for that as well.
And can you tell us about the membership? That sounds interesting. What's into the membership?
So the membership is an online piece where you can get one-on-one time with me. Every single month, I do dedicated training. There's a series of ebooks. I think I've got 36 ebooks on there that are self-paced. You can either grab the ebook inside of the membership or outside of the membership. You can do just one book. You can do an entire bundle. You can get the video online piece as well, masterclass. And so that's kind of like a self-serve. Typically, people will come into, it's like an entry-level piece. They'll come into the membership. There's just a plethora of resources, from taped webinars on predictive index, the ones that I've done, other pieces. And then you also have that community. And so it's an online community that you can chat as well, with a private Facebook group, private a LinkedIn group as well. And then you also get one-on-one time with me. And then that often will lead into people wanting to get certified as culture curators, and I'll do that individually or teams. Nowadays, I don't do a lot of those in person. I used to tour to do that and do open up. And now I just, as people inquiry, I set up the virtual training for that certification. And with that, you actually get a year of membership free as well.
Wow,
so
that's super cool.
a few different ways depending on your budget and who you are and what it is you're trying to achieve. Individually and or with a team. So I try to give people a lot of different avenues to kind of, get in touch with me as well. And then I also have another premium piece on the membership, is that I do mastermind groups quarterly for some smaller groups. Sometimes they're all CEOs, and then sometimes they are all CHROs, and then sometimes there's a mix. And I do that with the same size groups, not industries. The industries are mixed, but different groups. I do have one industry that's pretty dedicated. It's the private childcare industry. I've got quite a few clients, and so I dedicate some different specific groups and sessions and training for them as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot that you can get into. My desire is to communicate the masses for the ones that want to kind of drive their own and pick up tidbits and do their own thing, but then be very hands-on for the others that want more of a dedicated approach, and to use me as that outside benchmark. The beauty of the consultancy world is that you're able to do things quicker for your clients, because your clients get sucked into their own day-to-day drama. A consultant doesn't do that. You're hiring a consultant for a specific thing, and they're able to drive deliberately and stay on task. And that's why it's such a huge value add. And they don't get sucked into the day-to-day, and they're able to come in with an unbiased view to help you see things that you just can't see because you're in the thick of things.
Absolutely. And what I like about your membership is the fact that it's including a one-on-one, because most membership really, I don't ever see them including a one-on-one, something like that. So I like that, because not a lot of people can learn in a group, well, especially me. If you say group something, I'm like, no, I need a one-on-one.
Yeah, quite honestly, that's part of how it's one of those things of what do I like about things I've done in the past and what are the things that, to your point, didn't fit for me. And so that's why I try to give a couple of options. I really am about customization. So that's where I've added to the different spheres of my business along the way is that somebody has said, is brave enough sometimes to go, I was on your site, I want this, but I didn't see this. Do you do this? And those are things that make me go, well, yeah, let's figure that out. Let's figure that out. So because I searched for that when I was in the typical corporate structure, and we need more of that. I wish I would have had. It didn't have to be a me, but I wish I would have had a me type when I was in. I would have learned through. I would have gone through the learning curve. I would like to think quicker and would not have made some of the mistakes that I made if I would have had that guide or that sounding board more deliberately. So.
Absolutely. And I think that too, the mistakes, probably you're supposed to go through them so that you can be where you are right now.
Yes, this is
Helping
true.
others, not going through them.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't. When people say they don't have regrets, I would say, well, I would say I don't have regrets either. But I do have regrets. But I've taken that into, well, what lessons did I learn from that? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Not just I regret doing that, but why? And if it comes up again, what am I going to do differently, and how am I going to move forward? Just
Exactly.
to your point.
Exactly. So, 35 years. Well, I guess we can say 40 years, right?
That I've been doing this, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
We can say 40 years.
I'm close to 60. If people are wondering, so that's why I'm able to say I've been doing it. I've been doing it for so long. I really have. I've been in this little thing called the people, space, and management for just that long.
So for 40 years, so you start your own business. I'm sure that challenges come along and obstacles. So what are the challenges and obstacles that you face?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my biggest learning was when I purchased the franchise and I stood up my team and stood up the space around it. And the numbers that I had pulled together in my business plan was really off. And I had not properly planned and thought through all the obstacles that would come through. And so after the year and after selling the franchise and then keeping the elements that worked for me and to be able to reinvent, what that could look like, was now I have a team, but they're all a separate team, and I keep them in their space and pull them in as needed. So if I need somebody to help on the marketing and the design for the university side, for example, and the messaging, I've got people that I bring in. If I've got multiple leadership development workshops that are going on at a time and I need to duplicate myself, I've got strategic partners that I bring in for that. I've got people who are, specific to things that I need more of, like from a coaching, from an EQI standpoint. So whatever that might be, probably the biggest early lesson that I learned was don't put the brick and the mortar and the staffing before you really are in and settled and figuring out what do you want to own and what do you want to give away. And when you delegate that giveaway piece, how are you going to vet those persons? And do you add them to your staff as permanent payroll, or do you keep them on as strategic partners or 1099? There's all kinds of ways that you can do that. So that was probably an ouch, but a lesson learned in order to, when you're growing, when do you turn on? Now I would say it's clarity of messaging. For me, it is the daily messaging through either, I've got a couple of different podcasts, so daily messaging and showing up and being deliberate, and then fine-tuning my calendar from a capacity standpoint of who to take on, how to take on, and then turning on things like membership for people who just want to grab and go. Those have been some other challenges that I've kind of, have gone through. From an aha when people ask, I would say the daily messaging was the biggest game changer for me, and I started doing that now. I'm on 4 years. I don't always daily message on Saturday and Sunday, but Monday through Friday, daily messaging. showing up on my platforms, messages, videos, podcasts, on my stage or other people's stages, such as today, and remaining relevant, always remaining accessible and relevant. And a lot of people like, oh my gosh, you do that every day? How have you done that? Nope. You have to do it every day. It's good for you, and it's good for the people that you serve, and they will find you.
Absolutely, I agree with that. So pretty much, if I understand correctly, what you do is that you have different teams that handle different things. So you don't put them in things that they're not supposed to be doing. You put them in the things that they're supposed to be doing, that they're good at, so that they can bring the best into your business.
Absolutely. So instead of generic, it's customized through specialty of teams. So often, again, depending on the scope of work, it's me. But when it goes into larger, I do have some really large accounts, and the ones that are a 3 to 10 year locked and loaded, and they're using my services in a variety of ways. Oftentimes I bring in other partners with me that I vetted and worked with in the past. And we go and execute that said contract, especially when I have to be in different places all over the world on the same day. That doesn't work for one person. So that's when I bring in. And that way they stay in their zone of genius and I get to stay in mine. That's the best of both worlds. And the client's getting a top-notch expert that lives in that space, that thing, all the time.
I like that. And also your team don't get frustrated and aggravated all the time, so that they can show up happy and ready to work. So yeah, I like it. So you also a bestseller author. So can you tell us about the books that you have?
Yeah. So my early one was called The Connection. I learned a lot through doing that on the self-publishing side, and it really is about the elements of what do I do and how do I do in my thought process. The next book that I did was called Brass Ovaries, Own Yours, and it is absolutely it's not a man-bashing book, just to clarify, but it's a women's empowerment group about all the things that we go through, have been through the ages, how we own ourselves, how we have confidence, how we have presence, the things that have gotten in our way, the labeling that has gotten in our way, and how do we get around that. So that book is probably my passion project. I had a co-author that did that with me as well. And we went through and we shared our stories of what we had gone through. And then we unpacked it and we called Cleaning the Closet, and we gave you some things to do along the way. And there's actually a workbook that goes with that as well. And then one of my other books is called it's BFF. It's about the failures that company cultures have, the big fat failures that company cultures have. And so that it begins to unpack a bit of that, my process around the inquiry, and how to curate it and create the culture that you have. And then those are my biggies. And then the other ones are mirroring subsets of those. And then I have a series of leadership development more dedicated around either the culture, the leadership, the inclusion side, the teaming, and those are all in ebook fashion. And like I said, there's about 36 of those that you can either download or bundle up and get a master copy of. But there are things and there are life lessons that I've gone through. I always say I've gone out into the ocean. I've hit a lot of waves, a lot of different storms, and I'm happy to say I've made it back on the shore alive. And now I'm just showing you how I did it, and you pick and choose what it is that you want along the way.
Exactly, because each one of us are suffering with different things and different obstacles, different challenges. But again, having the support from someone like you that can say, hey, this is what helps me. Here it is. Go ahead, give it a shot. You never know.
Exactly. Take what you want. And I will say, to your earlier point, the biggest lessons learned are when we go through them ourselves. So it's not meant to ever replace your own experience and your own perspectives, but just to get an additional lens, more of a 3D lens, if you will, to go, okay, I remember reading this, or I remember she said this, or I remember, let me try this today. And that's actually why I started doing it's called Your Morning Commute, pre-COVID, when people are actually in their cars going to work every day. A podcast at 3 to 5 minutes, Monday through Friday. And it's meant to be just a thought for the day, a giddy up for the day, a when you get in the office, here's something to think, to stay super hyper focused as a leader, as a manager, as a culture curator, and to make an impact for the day. And so it's those little bitty pieces along the way. And that's how a lot of my books have been created, is I expand upon a podcast that maybe I noticed that a lot of people did, commented, shared, listened to, and I'll pick that up and I'll turn that into an actual workbook or ebook to expand upon it. And then again, people can just grab and go.
I like that. But you also have 2 podcasts, right?
Yeah, so your morning commute and then the culture hour. The morning commute is that Monday through Friday piece. I'm on episode, I think, 470 now for that. Again, they're 3 to 5 minutes, quick, easy pieces that you can grab and go when you're in your car or sipping your morning coffee. And then the culture hour. The culture hour, I think, is on maybe episode 80-ish. And that's where I invite a guest in. I invite a guest in and we unpack for 20 to 40 minutes and just have a conversation around workplace culture and what's going on in their world.
I love that. So you are super busy. How do you keep up with all of that?
I am crazy when it comes to my scheduling and being very deliberate about my checklist and my planning. It doesn't mean I don't get overwhelmed like everyone else, but I really am good at blocking time, which it's one of the things that I help people with, the self-awareness of what derails you. And people often say, so do you use what you're telling me to do? And I say, yep. You want to see my calendar? And I show them how I lay out my calendar and my thought process and how I back up when I've got a keynote speaking coming up, or when I'm doing a university, or when I'm setting up my first inquiry, or whether it's whatever it is, and how I back myself up in my calendar to be very deliberate and block my time. If not, I lose my mind.
Oh, wow. So you've been through all that. You started your own business. You went through all the challenges. Well, you get through by the sea and you get back to the shore. Things are moving along just fine and you're helping many people and to make a difference in their own lives. So what changes come into your life after you started your own business that make you feel like, wow, I did this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a second. I think some of the after the thoughts of, oh my gosh, was the daily messaging that I mentioned before, that I'm like, how do people find me? And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are actually listening, Googling, searching, and I'm popping up. And so all that work that we think that we're doing and nobody's watching, nobody's listening, it was worth it. Keep doing it. It does add value. It was not self-serving. And so that's been a moment. I think the biggest thing is to remain authentic with who you are. When I entered into this space, I do not have a formal higher education background. And initially, that would give me a little bit of pause. And then I really was like, you know what? I've learned way more in my life than what can be read in a book. What I bring to the table is different because I've been in it and on it. And I just need to own who I am and be comfortable in my own skin. And there's going to be people along the way who don't appreciate that and want to have, a PhD behind. Not that there's anything wrong with having that, because massive kudos for people who do. But that I'm okay with who I am by not having a PhD, by not having the master, by not having an MBA, because I've actually gone through, lived it, and survived it and can help others do that. So I think the biggest change for me is actually my own self-worth and my own value, to lighten the load and not to be so hard on myself. And it's okay being me. It's okay to have Shelleyisms. It's okay to lean into my Southern accent. It's okay to just be comfortable with who I am. And hopefully my children are seeing those transitions and transformations as well. Now, I am by no means perfect in any way, shape, or form. I try to get uncomfortable with something every single day in order to level up, which is actually one of my signs for people who can see this. One of my signs, get comfortable being uncomfortable. My Mission 60 sign back there. I'm a huge, believer in that. Reading and researching, leveling yourself up every day. I can't give my perspective and advice if I'm not taking it myself. My daughter will often tell me I need to reread a chapter of my own book from Brass Ovaries when I'm beating myself up. She's like, Mom, have you read chapter 6 that you wrote lately? So anyways, those are some of my lessons. Don't take life serious. Level up every day. Be your authentic, transparent self. Some people are not going to groove you. Some people will. Lean into the ones who can and share what you can.
Absolutely. And you know one thing, having a PhD, having an MBA, having a master degree, telling you the truth, I'm not saying it's not worth it. But the experience that when you actually start working, that's what's important. Because even me having a master degree in psychology and having an MBA, yes, I learned things in school. Learning it is one thing. But when you get to the job and getting it done, that's what makes the difference. Because everything you're going to really learn is in the job. Everything you really need to know is in the job. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that your experience, it's worth way more than my MBA.
Well, I think the perfect marry is to pull them, to your point, together. Because every certification I've done, to your point, I learned something out of it. But then when the rubber meets the road, it's what do we do with it? To your point. So yeah.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is like also what you have, it's important because you have 40 years of experience of something that I don't have, someone else do not have it, and it's valuable, it's priceless. You can't put a price into that because it's a lot of frustration, a lot of dedication, a lot of your time that you put into this to learn it. That's worth more than a degree because after I get the degree, I gotta go out there and learn it the proper way. When you're at the job, you're getting it done. That's when you're really learning. So what you have is a lot more than what I have. So what I'm saying, I can learn from you every single day.
Thank you so much. But again, I do not want to. Anybody who's listening, I'm not saying, hey, all of my two oldest have a college degree, so I'm a huge proponent in continued education and learning in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, having the applicability. It's just, for me, it was a personal struggle that I was embarrassed about, and I'm no longer embarrassed. And I guess that's what I'm saying.
You should not. Yes, having a degree is good. Personally, still taking my PhD. It's good to continue your education, but we all learn different ways. Some people learn by just being online and watching different videos and getting books in the library. It's the same way. For me, I look at it the same way because we are putting the same amount of time by trying to better ourselves. So it's the same education really without paying the high bills that come with the degrees. That's how I see it. But again, we all learn just in different ways, and it's good to just keep on learning. So, what do you think is the most important thing that businesses should pay attention to?
They're people. Hands down. Their team. Their team's the one who get it done. If you are so far removed that you're never around your literal desk or your proverbial desk if you're virtual, you're going to get lost. Your team's going to get lost. You're going to become dysfunctional if you're not already, and you're going to bleed profit. If businesses need to pay attention to their people, meaning they need to have conversations with their team. They need to have deliberate check-ins. They need to build rapport. Hands down, that's the answer. Period.
Absolutely. So, any piece of advice that you like to share with young entrepreneurs that's starting out?
Make sure that if you're doing that business plan, that if you're trying to get, whether it's angel funding, venture capital, traditional with banking, and you're doing your business plan, please don't forget to make the culture statement. Don't do it after the fact. Do it deliberately, and then as you add to your team. And that's whether you're typing it out to submit, or you're doing it because it's the right thing to do from a business strategy standpoint. Make sure you think about what kind of culture you want to have, the values that will allow you to achieve that said mission and vision, the product and the service that you're delivering, and who your target audience is. So you know when you're hiring that you're hiring deliberately the people who have the aligned values to understand, to protect the culture of how you get things done, period. There's all kinds of banks, and they all have different cultures. There's all kinds of IT firms. There's all kinds of construction firms. There's all kinds of hotel brands. The list goes on. What makes them different is their people. And the more you align your people deliberately right up front to how you get things done, which is surrounded around your values, the more likelihood you're going to keep having fun in that business that you're now creating.
And also it's become a lot easier for you to grow and expand when you need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because you're rinsing and repeating, and you know what right looks like. The left and the right guardrails are up the whole time. And your entire team knows.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So what are your future plans? How do you wish to expand Premier Rapport?
That's a great, fair question I've been pondering myself. I'm going to stay the course with the daily messaging, keynotes when I'm asked to come in, in order to share the content with the masses. My business primarily comes from client referrals, which I absolutely love, and going deeper with my clients. So I'm going to stay the course. I'm not going to change the course. I'm going to keep. I'm in a rinse and repeat mode. I'm always looking out for partnerships, so I can also start thinking about my own exit plan and what that looks like to be able to step out. I would like to get into more philanthropy and long term to be able to give back, and so I'm in that stage of looking through what are those possibilities in order to help and to give back more to the community as well long term.
I love it. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I appreciate all the questions today and being on here, and I know that you'll have the information for people to follow up if they're interested in grabbing any of my free white papers or anything on the website or questions. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and it's valuable and it's important, and we need to learn that the people are important when it's come to business.
People first, humans first, employees second.
Wow, that was a great conversation with Shelley. I love talking about culture, because most organizations try to ignore it. But you need something that's very important for any big corporation, small business. You need the help to incorporate that so that your staff members can have an easy way at work. You can try to change everything in this world, but you can't change a woman's touch, which is one of the reasons organizations need Shelley 35 plus years of experience to grow. Thank you, Shelley, for taking the time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for listening to this week's episode. Let me know your thoughts about this episode and how you use culture to improve your business. To learn more about Shelley and Premier Rapport, visit www.premierrapport.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.